Good morning, everyone. What a lovely crowd. So glad you're here. Beautiful day, lovely crowd, two great speakers. I'm super excited. Our videographer is stuck in traffic, so he will be here shortly, but no matter what, we're moving forward today. You know that IT Leaders is a peer group. It is for directors and managers who are in staff IT positions. We focus on three things. We focus on food. We focus on getting together and networking with each other, and we focus on mentorship skills. That's part of being a leader, and this is a venue where you can actually find mentors or be a mentee as well, and be a mentor. So that's an option that you have here. And of course, we have a couple of guest speakers that talk about leadership skills and how to lead in specific contexts across a lot of different disciplines in IT. We don't always have IT-specific leadership. The topics can vary. We've had a number of people over the years. We've had CEOs speak. We've had COOs. We've had HR people speak. You need to know what those people think about, and Lauren is actually going to bring that up. She did a little homework on what everybody else thinks of IT that I think will be super interesting this morning. But the reason we're here is for you to work on your own leadership skills. Bathrooms are over here, men and women. If you need to leave early, text me. There's my mobile right there. And I will make sure that one of my folks gets you out the door without any problem. Ben Schmidt's on the back here. He'll be here till 9. He's visiting. He's one of the Expedient folks. He's visiting from Cincinnati, so he can walk you out if you need to leave for an emergency or something like that. And then Brett and Dwayne and Bob Carter are available as well. If you like what you see here today and you want to keep in touch with what's going on, you need to go to itleaders.org/Indianapolis and sign up for the mailing list. That is an email list that we email about 4 times a session. We meet bi-monthly, as you probably figured out, and we email about 4 times for any one given meeting, so you can get reminded of what's upcoming and who the guest speakers are. This meeting is typically the 3rd Tuesday of every other month. January, it's a little bit different. This coming January, the 25th, I think we're the last Tuesday. But other than that, it's typically the 3rd Tuesday. In addition to the website, we've got a couple of other web properties that are available. We've got the LinkedIn company page, which is IT Leaders Indianapolis, which I often refer to when I am posting on LinkedIn. You can get to the IT Leaders website there, and a few people post some different content on that page as well. We have the LinkedIn group, which is IT Leaders Community, which is actually a nationwide group I'll speak of. And then the X account that we maintain is also IT Leaders Com, meaning IT Leaders Community. We will be a lot more active with that in the coming year, and that is really focused on all the IT leaders, and I'll talk about those in a minute. The community, the private LinkedIn group, is something that you request to join and join. That is for you to communicate with each other. So if you've got issues with vendors, or you want to know if a particular person might be a good fit, or if you've got an open opportunity that you'd like to get out there to other directors and managers, VPs and CIOs are always welcome to attend this meeting, and they're welcome in this group too. We keep the sales reps out of that group specifically, and we keep them out of this meeting. We often have service providers, but those service providers have direct reports, so they fit the category of being a leader in this role. So this is a good community. I wish it got used more. I think it can be. If you're an active social media person, please join it and post. If you've got a good leadership article, this is a great place to put it as well. Social media, again, if you're a loudmouth on social media, we'd love for you to talk about this event. Use @IT Leaders Indianapolis so you can refer to the company page. Take some pictures, if you would, for me, please, today of the different speakers, and post about what you saw today and what you learned. I think your former coworkers who are in IT and the people that you know in IT on the church and at the soccer field and in your other circles of influence would all love to hear about this. And if they care about their leadership journey, they can benefit. We have a mentorship program that's existed for 8 years now, and it is a very simple one-page self-service program. I've got about a dozen IT leaders who have committed to be mentors. If that's something that's important to you on either side of the equation, whether you want to be a mentor or you'd like to be a mentee, reach out to me. I could send you the one-pager. Your responsibility is to get your hallucination of a career path written down and to get your LinkedIn profile up to date, and then you agree to reach out to one of the mentors on LinkedIn, and you agree to 3 dates, and if there's chemistry, you can go forward with that. If there's not, you can move on to another one, and that's okay. Either way is okay. Questions on that? IT Leaders is now in Indy. That's where we started. It exists in Louisville. It's one of our older locations. And the ones I'm describing here are all in this same community type format that we use here. There's one in Northeast Indiana. It meets at Fort Wayne. And we have started in Denver in June, and we are starting in Phoenix in October. I'm going out there to get the October 1 Phoenix event started. It is very likely we're going to move to some other markets where we have data centers in the coming year. There is not a city that I've been to in the U.S. that doesn't have leaders who want to work on their leadership skills. And it's very rare to get leadership training generally, and more specifically IT leadership training. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment with Stephanie. But a lot is going on. One thing I want to say before we move forward, we had an IT Leaders Northeast Indiana event scheduled for November 5th, which happens to be Election Day up in Fort Wayne. My speakers had ended up having some conflicts, so we're actually going to cancel that, and we're going to do a happy hour up there instead. So if you like a drinking group with a networking problem, you can read about that on the Fort Wayne site, the itleaders.org/NE Indiana. We'll post about that. I think it's probably going to be on the 7th, that happy hour date, but we will get started back again in February. That's a quarterly meeting up there. It's bi-monthly here and in Indy. Speaking of leadership training, we have revived the IT Leadership Boot Camp. Lou Russell, as you probably know, led the old one, and she retired. So we've been searching for the right answer to put together an affordable, effective Leadership 101 class. Or it's not only Leadership 101, it's for leaders who want a refresher, or if you've got direct reports who could use a little bit more self-awareness. These are all good fits. The program is $12.50, and I want Stephanie Crevens, the one who's leading. If you wouldn't mind standing up and talking a little bit about the content, I'd appreciate it.
Sure thing. I'm still short, so you probably still can't see me back here. Doug, thank you so much for having us in. Oh, hello. So Doug and I have collaborated to bring this leadership program to you, to your teammates, and quite frankly, we've designed it to meet some of the challenges that I know our IT leaders struggle with on a day-to-day basis. I have the good pleasure of training and coaching IT leaders every single day, and so we've designed this as a way to say, what are some of the common problems that we run into as leaders every single day? And we know the most successful leaders are the most self-aware leaders. And so that's where we're starting, with self-awareness. You can't manage others, you can't coach others, you can't lead others unless you know, why do I do it? How do I do it? Why do I get stuck? And so we're going to start with some DISC, we're going to start with the 360 to get input and the perceptions around you as a leader or your teammate. And then we're going to talk about some of the common challenges and some of the common let me see, problem children that you might manage throughout your career and how to get past that, right? There are some archetypes that we run into in managing others and managing ourselves. So we're going to break that down and how can you use those frameworks moving forward. And then lastly, we're going to focus on growth because this is designed to be an entree into leadership development and growth. I went through my first leadership program when I was 27, and it changed the trajectory of my life. I went back, and my boss said, "You are a different person," and that's what I strive to bring every single day to the community. And I want us to end this program on what's next. How do you grow next? How do you know when you need to grow? How do you know to choose mentoring or training or coaching or go off to a yoga retreat and go offline for 5 days on a silent retreat, which you can do. How do you know when you're supposed to do that? Why would you hire an executive coach? So we're going to bring in other resources to help you understand or your teammates understand, how do I know when I need to ask for help? What kind of help do I need to ask for? So that is the program in a nutshell. I'll be with you all this morning, so happy to answer questions afterwards. But again, I hope that your teammates will take advantage of this. This is a very, very affordable option, and you get to learn from your peers in even more deep and more effective ways.
I would encourage any of you, we've got a short runway on this first installment. We really need to find out within the next week if you can attend or not. We know that's a short runway. However, I would encourage you to consider it, even if it's your own money, and even if you don't get reimbursement on it. It is so important to get training on this kind of work. I think that 1 out of 100 IT professionals are natural-born leaders. I think they still need training, frankly. So consider this. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks,
Jenny, talk about the Agile Indy Conference.
Thank you. Doug was kind enough to let me come in and speak to you all. I'm the president of Agile Indy, and we're having a conference on October 18th, and I hope that you all can attend. We've tried to diversify this year. Last year was our first year back from COVID, and we generally have 30 speakers that talk to probably your operational folks, but this year we're changing it, and we're going to have 2 keynotes. One is Jeff Patton. He is the gold standard for user story writing. And we are going to have Pete Anderson, who is a chief product officer, and he's going to bring one of his clients in. And I specifically asked him to go through what they went through going from project to product. And they're going to walk through what they worked together through and contracts, because I think there's a lot of room for help with contracts in agility or whether you're writing them towards project or product management. And I think he's going to be amazing when he goes over all of it, especially with this client. So that was a last minute ad. We're also going to have a C-suite panel. We're going to have Tim Pullman, who is the CTO of Eli Lilly. I don't know if you saw him, but he was published in the Wall Street Journal talking about AI this week. I recommend you go look at that if you missed it. We're going to have Matt Etchison, who is the CIO of Ivy Tech. So we have Big Pharma, we have higher education. Dave Todaro, he is the CEO of Ascendal, which is a consulting software firm, but he can talk from top to bottom, and our membership loves him. And we're going to have John Macrina, who is our new CTO. I work at the NCAA, by the way. So he's our new CTO at the NCAA, and it's going to be a fireside chat. So we've never done this year. We've never had a panel this year. We've tried to restructure the whole program to have something for everybody. So we used to have 30 speakers. Now we're going to have 2 keynotes. We're going to have a fireside chat with the C-suite panel, and we're going to have 12 really focused sessions for operational folks, tactical, strategic. We're going to have leadership, product management, team development, and we really tried to focus on giving skills to the people who attend that they can take back to work and actually use, versus going over frameworks and all of the things, because people often struggle. They'll learn, they'll get really excited, and go back to work, and they won't be able to utilize those skills, so they kind of miss it. This year, we're really trying to incorporate AI and what you can do with it in a variety of roles. So maybe your folks can come. I welcome all of you to come. And Doug, thank you so much. He embraced me. He's such a nice person. He embraced me and welcomed me in, and I appreciate your time. If you want to go to our website, you can check it out. It's at www.agileindy.org.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Leading Light Awards. Lauren, do you want to speak about that?
Hi there. I'm Lori Boyer. I am a former software engineer turned into a leader over a team of software engineers. That's my day job. But I'm also involved with Women in High Tech, which is a nonprofit in town that is all about helping women and young girls get interested in the STEM careers. And as part of that, we give out some amazing leadership and male ally awards, all happening on October 3rd. And that's also the night that we have a bunch of scholarships we give away. I think it's around 55,000 this year that we're awarding to a lot of amazing students here in Indiana that have plans to remain in the Indiana area. So if you get a chance, go to womeninhightech.org, get registered for the event, and we'll see you there.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Any other events that the group should know about? Okay, moving right along here. This is your part. This is where you talk about open positions that might exist in your organization, or if you're looking for your next position. Any open positions? Go ahead, David.
Hi, the Central Indiana Community Foundation will be posting a job, Director of Information Technology, hopefully before the end of the month or early October. That's going to replace me at the end of the calendar year. So the whole hope is that we get through the interview process and get somebody on board before December so that I get a month to do some crossover before I ride off into the sunset on December 31st.
Sounds like
So,
fun.
Director of Information Technology, Central Indiana Community Foundation, keep your eyes out for that one.
Thanks, David. Anybody else have open positions? Earl?
We're looking for a Director of Business Intelligence Analytics to join us on our data journey. The company's Renaissance. Group benefits insurance doesn't get much more exciting than that. But as you can imagine, data is important, and also analytics are absolutely key in how we drive that growth. So if anyone's interested, name's Earl Shaw. Check me out on LinkedIn. You can see the post we just put up there last week. Thanks.
Any other open positions? Oh,
Hi, Ryan Brubaker, C-Spring. We're looking for a data architect and a Tableau developer.
data architect, Tableau developer. Final call. Greg?
Greg Flat Earth Networking. We're a cybersecurity MSP, and we are currently looking for a cybersecurity engineer and a cybersecurity analyst. So it's not a leadership role, but if you know anybody who is looking to move into cybersecurity, we've got positions open.
Thanks, Greg. Last call. All right, who's looking for their next position? Go ahead.
So I'm Dave Hume. Friday was my last day with MicroStrategy, so a couple of people have talked about business analytics. I was the Director of Information Security Operations. Basically, I was Deputy CISO. So anything you could think of, internal security, SaaS security, FedRAMP, ISO, SOC 2 certifications, answering security questionnaires, customer complaints, getting customers to buy our product. One-stop shop. That we were a small team.
Okay, sounds great. Anybody else? Go ahead, Les.
Les Janesco, served in various IT leadership roles. Just a quick update for those who know me. After Amazon, I stepped into IT director role with my New Jersey pharma company, which to drive some projects, but that's coming to an end. So I'm looking for that next IT director role.
IT director role, Les Janesco. San Jill.
Sanjay Ramchandani, I'm currently with CNO. Went through a reorg recently, so senior director positions, some VP positions were eliminated. I do software engineering, IT leadership, IT operations. I've been with Capgemini, so I've been in a client partner role, on-prem to cloud migration, so pretty much everything in between.
Thank you, San Jill. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Robert Creech. I've been in system administration, day-to-day business operations for the last 6 years, and looking to instruct the links into security. So definitely have to talk about the engineer and not the analyst role in the meeting.
Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
Okay. We're good? All right, we're good. If you like what you see here and you want to look at previous events, youtube.com/expedient/videos is where we put all the recordings for all these events. Eric does the editing once we get finished with the events, and he puts them out there. We also pry the audio out of these events for a podcast called IT Leaders. Clever, I know. It is a great way to listen when you're in the car. So same presentations you'll hear today will actually be out in our podcast. Upcoming events, I mentioned that the Northeast Indiana one is not going to happen in November, but the next IT Leaders Louisville is going to happen October 8th down at Yum Brand's headquarters in Louisville. Sue Fries from Humana is going to be talking about communication, both upward and downward in IT. She's in DevSecOps. Communication is important in security operations, as I'm sure you know. And our old friend Glenn Keller, who has spoken a couple of times here locally, has maybe the best title of the year here, is Your Technology Destroying Your Team's Productivity. Yeah, I don't have time to fill in my TPS report. So yeah, that should be really good. And those will be available via video if you can't make it down there. Next one here is November 19th. Mike Gill will be speaking. Hi, Mike. And Rachel Clark from the Bureau of Motor Vehicles will be speaking as well. Both super fun people. I'm excited about that event. Thanks to Expedient, my employer, who's been allowing me for 8 years now to not only hold this event here in Indy, but to grow it into multiple markets and to serve the community. They are an amazing group. Overall, I just cannot get over the fact that a technology company is willing to bring free leadership training to so many people in so many markets. So I'm super grateful to work for them. And today's speaker is Lauren Sanders, is going to kick us off. She's going to be talking about bridging the human and technological divide, and then followed by Anushri Bagh, who will be speaking about governance and AI-enabled security in her new role. So, Lauren, are you ready? All right.
Good morning.
Hello there.
You're going to learn nothing from me unless you participate. Challenge accepted? Anyhow, I Met Your Mother fans? It's going to be legend. Derek. I want you to answer the following question at your table. What's a real work problem that keeps you up at night? Okay, I've got another question that goes on top of that. I want you to tell each other the root cause of this problem. I'm seeing a lot of passion in the room around this topic. You can keep going, right? We keep talking about this. But I have a question for you.
30 seconds.
How many of you listed lack of something as a reason? Lack of time? Lack of communication or resources? Lack of respect? You're laughing. But I did crowdsource before this, and I know that's a thing too. But all of this is blame. We're going to talk about stopping this and making better connections with people so that we can get more work done through them. Because we're not doing work to them, but we need to get work done through them. We have a human operating system. And mine is not necessarily the same as yours, as I've learned. This is the first time I've had all IT people in a room. Usually the IT people are peppered throughout the room when I'm talking. And there's a little bit of challenging thought processes across the organizational structures. Because what I've learned is, the thing about IT is we don't appreciate you until something breaks. You are the most taken for granted group of people in an organization until something doesn't work. And then it quickly becomes your fault. And then we can't talk to you.
Amen.
I'm kidding, but I crowdsourced for this and I'm going to share a lot of what I learned. But our human operating system is that interface between our mind, our body, and our connection with the world. And we see it only from our own purview. This is the typical problem of a human being. And the example I'm going to use is micromanagement. I'm a micromanager. Well, when you tell me that or I'm coached on it and I don't believe you, I distance myself from my own behavior. That's really not what I want to do. I'm just trying to help people. I'm not micromanaging anything. I don't need to control it. I just want things done right the first time. I reject you. I reject your recognition of my behavior. I am not going to accept it. So I'm going to create my own adjustment to your perception. Because I don't believe you. Until I believe you, nothing's going to change. Until I'm self-aware, nothing's changing. So what happens? My behavior continues. We start this whole process again. Who's seen this in real life? You ever try to coach somebody that is uncoachable? This is why those of us who do coaching, and I know there's a couple of you in the room, we usually start with a chemistry conversation, because I know pretty quickly if you're somebody I can work with. If you don't have any self-awareness, I'll refer you to somebody else, maybe a therapist. That was supposed to make you laugh. This is my favorite quote of all time. Has anybody ever read the book Leadership and Self-Deception? If you've never read it, it's by the Arbinger Institute. It is the book of aha moments. Here's me reading it. Oh crap. Oh no. You come to very quick realizations that no matter how good you are, you're never as good as you think you are. And if you think you don't have something to learn from everyone around you, you're done before you get started. Now, at your table or next to your table, I want you to find someone to talk about for the next 3 minutes. But every time you want to use a verb, I want you to replace that verb with 2 other ones that mean the same thing. Can't use the original word that came into your mind. Are you ready? You've got 3 minutes. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, time. How many now think 3 minutes is a very long time? How many of you thought that was fun? Okay. How many of you found that really frustrating? How many thought it was kind of fun and frustrating? How many abandoned ship completely? I saw it. I either saw complete silence, horrified looks on your faces, or I'm going to look at my phone. I'm pretty much done with this, or I'm going to talk about something else. How many of you do not have English as a first language? So not that many. This is very much what it's like to speak a different language and to be in a space where it's not your first language. For most of the people that you're talking to in IT, technology is not their first language. I want you just to take a moment and feel that sense of frustration that you just went through. And think about that from the perspective of the person you might be talking to. This might be very much what they're experiencing. And until we can really take that feeling and do something with it, nothing's gonna change. As the saying goes, if nothing changes, nothing changes. This is culture in the workplace. Have you heard of the jaws of culture? That's a common phrase. We think we have this great culture and then we throw it into the jaws of culture and things happen. And as the jaws of culture come through, the research tells us some very interesting things about working on projects with people. This is what PMI tells us. 1 in 5 projects fail because of communication. PwC, 50% of projects. Chaos report. That's staggering, right? I don't have to read these to you because you can read. KPMG.
Or lived them.
And another KPMG. Is anything new or stunning to you here? How many of you have lived some of this, or all of it? How many of you sometimes go home and just want to bang your head on your desk at work or at the table? Feel like you're running up against a brick wall. I think of the little Mario guy, when you've got the cursor too far and he's just walking in, going nowhere. I crowdsourced for this. This was the question I asked people. What do you think they said? Any ideas?
Difficult to understand. The business, as you said, the communications, they don't know what we're saying to them. We use our jargon.
What do you think their first response was?
Do I
Okay.
have to?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. What I do?
Yeah.
Here's what they said. Some of my favorites, though. I better make cookies. Oh my gosh, I hope we have a really good project manager who can translate. I already turned it off and on. I rebooted. Do I have to? I think I need to quit my job now. How's that make you feel? Remember that last activity you just did? This is what became of that conversation that you had with that business person that didn't want to work with you. Now, I know this goes both ways, but what I'm trying to get is the emotion that I want you to feel about this. So I dug a little bit deeper, and I asked some of the questions about what is driving these feelings. And this is what they told me the problem is. Just a couple that I want to point out to you. The first one is technical jargon versus plain language. The fact that they often think you're very detail-oriented when they need high-level information. They want a better cadence than just communicating milestones. And I think Doug is making this presentation, so you will have this, so you don't need to remember all of it. You can print it later or look at it or share it with your teams. But this is really what the biggest challenge in communication is between IT and non-IT people. Now I know all of you as leaders have already solved this problem, right? We have no problems. There are no problems. We're gonna invoke our empathy. And I'm hoping by now that you're starting to feel it a little bit, especially based on that last activity where the 3 minutes felt like 3 hours of conversation. But without empathy, we cannot build better relationships. If we don't have the ability to understand other people's perspectives and stories, even if they're not our own and even if we don't agree with them, we still have to believe them because that's where the person that you're working with is. Where do bias and empathy intersect? What do you think? Anybody? I don't like talking at people. The first person to talk to me gets a book. Where do empathy and bias intersect?
Within yourself.
Within yourself. What about that? How do you know if you're biased?
You are, just are.
You just are, yeah, most of us are. How do we know if we're struggling with empathy? Do we know?
No.
My wife tells me repeatedly.
Wives are very good at that.
Frustration. We're frustrated.
Yes, frustration.
I should say, listen to feedback.
Listen to
Listen to
feedback?
what they're saying. And if you're getting a cohesive feedback from the team, multiple people, might be more self-aware.
Good point.
Or maybe you don't realize, like for me, I just left my company. My team begged me to stay. So I had more empathy than I even thought I had with my own team as they came out as I'm leaving. Please stay. We can't do this without you. I got text this morning for something. I don't work there anymore. So sometimes it can be the other way too.
How many of you have felt this as you've left somewhere? How many of you wish somebody would have said something while you were still there? How many times have you felt this about someone and not expressed it? I think the stat is only 1 in 7 appreciations are ever actually given. We think them all the time, but we rarely express it. How to know if you're struggling with empathy? Anybody feeling, you don't have to raise your hand, feeling highly emotional? Bottling things up? I have a whole other presentation on stages of burnout. If you need that one, hit me up after this, we'll talk about it. Is it hard to concentrate? Are you mentally exhausted? How about this one? That's eating too much, drinking too much, spending too much. Preoccupation. Multitasking more, which we all know nobody's good at. The frozen part, we don't always talk about the freeze and the fight or flight. A lot of us live in the space of fight or flight. We either are going hard or we decide we want to crawl into a hole. But we don't talk about the freeze. And the freeze is that anxiety state. And a lot of people live in that constantly. And it's easy to recognize in other people. That's your person on your team who used to do a great job and all of a sudden can't execute, can't get anything done. They're probably struggling a little bit and could use some of your empathy or an opportunity to work through some of that. How about extra judgy or complaining? How many of us sit in meetings every single day where we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that person said that. Or, would you please shut up? I really want this to be over. You're at the end of the meeting and then there's that person that has the last question and the whole room goes, ugh. You're laughing because you've seen it. It's true. It happens. But empathy isn't kindness, and I don't want us to mistake it for that. We can be empathetic and kind, but they're not mutually exclusive. I talk to a lot of leaders who don't want to give people feedback. That's hard because they're afraid it's going to hurt someone's feelings. Well, I'm a super empathetic person, so I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to keep them from being able to do their job. I want to be clear. It is unempathetic to not give people the feedback they need to get better at their job. This is what I call, people always talk about walking in others' shoes. What I'm talking about is you're walking in your own shoes. Keep them tied and keep them on. You need boundaries and you need to be able to tell people what they need to hear. It's the intent behind how you do it. Often our intent and our action don't match. Can I get a volunteer to give me a 2-minute rant about anything that bothers them at work? Anybody? Come on, somebody surely has a 2-minute rant. It doesn't even have to be 2 minutes. It can be 1 minute. All right. Give us your rants.
All right, I find myself in a situation where I've got employees that one day they do a fantastic job, they knock it out of the park, things are working great, and then all of a sudden the light switch goes and they're just doing stupid decisions. It's like, where did this come from? And I know it's personal. It's always personal when you get that kind of shift. And it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, how do we stay consistent? How do we offer them the opportunity to be able to have that conversation and say, hey, I love the fact you do great work, but Mondays you suck. You're always tired. Or, Tuesday afternoons, there's something about it. You're drained. I don't know what you're doing during lunch hour, but it's killing your productivity. And, having those conversations are fun, right? There's usually tears involved because they're not meeting expectations. And it's like, okay, cry it out. There's the Kleenex box. Let's move on, right? And then let's see what we can do. And it's like, all right, how can we help you with this? So that's a conversation that happens more frequently than I like to admit.
Thank you very much for that. Think about everything you heard, and that wasn't even 2 minutes. I could have let him keep going, but I didn't want to do that to him. What values were at stake for him? What did you hear? What values were at stake? Consistency. What else?
Quality of work.
Quality of work.
Possibly loyalty.
Loyalty.
Expectations.
Expectations.
His concern for the staff, that, something else is going on that I don't know about.
Concern. Often when we find ourselves ranting about something or being really upset about something that happened, it's usually tacked to some value at stake for us. A lot of times we expect ourselves from other people, or we expect that someone's situation is approached in the same way we would approach it. That doesn't always happen. So when we're feeling unempathetic, when we're feeling judgy, when we're feeling like we cannot walk into that meeting because we are just sick of that person or these people, that's a really good time to check what values are at stake within our own situation. What happens on a team? One person gets upset and ranty, and then what happens? You join my team. Giovanni joins my team because we can rant together. And then Calvin joins my team and we rant together. And then Patrick joins my team and it's contagious. And it spreads through an organization. You wonder how you get to toxic? Any leader can tell me that culture is top down. I love talking to the C-level about how culture is top down. It's not. It's bottom up. You can espouse all the culture you want, but it's your people that make it happen or not. And when this is happening on a team, we lose our ability because of our bias. We lose our ability to be empathetic. We lose our ability to listen, hear, work together with people. And I'll just let this sit for a minute. We have to connect, or we cannot collaborate. For more empathy, click here. Only tourists look up. This is a quote from a music artist. Her name's Dessa. She's out of Minneapolis. Best quote in the world. Think about that. You always know the tourists because they're going like this. But where's everybody else? Here. At work, everyone is in their own silo. Nobody's looking up. Nobody's looking across. We're so focused on what we have to do, we often don't consider the other people in the mix. So we have to change our perspective. If you've been coached by me, and I'll giggle over here in the corner, you know that I often talk about the hidey hole. I like to use the Groundhog Day analogy. The groundhog sits in their little hidey hole, and then February 2nd comes along, and their hidey hole's comfortable, and it's dark, and it's safe, and then they peek their head out of the hidey hole, and they decide either I'm gonna walk out into the sunshine and not see my shadow, or I'm gonna see my shadow and I'm gonna revert right back down into the hidey hole. Has anybody ever seen this before? This is the ladder of accountability, or sometimes called the accountability ladder. On the bottom half, things are happening to me, and on the top half, things happen because of me. What is the first thing that has to happen for somebody to actually get out of the hidey hole? The answer's up here.
Be aware that they're in it.
Be aware that they're in it, right. Unless we acknowledge reality, we will never own it, find a solution, or take action. If we don't acknowledge reality, we do all of the things that send us down back into the hidey hole, hoping somebody else is gonna take care of the problem.
Question.
Yes.
Isn't one of the challenges though, your reality may not be everyone else's reality? So if you say acknowledge reality, different for different folks.
And it might be reality, it might be accountability. That's a whole other conversation to get into. That could take a whole entire other direction, but it is really important to help people build self-awareness. So I'm gonna call on that little conference that you have coming up where people learn to be more self-aware, because it's really hard to ever acknowledge reality if you are not a self-aware human. You will just twist and stay in your hidey hole and never be a productive member of any team because you're so blind. But IT is the one that connects all of the pieces of the organization together. And I'll caveat that and say, whether they know it or not, you are the underpinning thing that ties them all together. So you have to be the great communicator. You have to be empathetic. And yes, we need to expect it from others too, but it has to start somewhere. This is how we increase collaboration, decrease frustration, and I love the technology adaptation curve. Have you seen this before? I'm sure you have. We want it to go up. We don't want it to go in the bell curve. So what actionable steps can IT leaders take to cultivate empathy and connection? Any ideas?
Better communication.
Better communication.
You have to be a translator between the IT jargon and the business.
Yeah.
Being aware that
Translate.
it's there.
Aware that it's there,
I think understanding your team
understanding your team,
at its core. Setting an example.
setting examples.
Yeah, demonstrating vulnerability.
Yeah. Vulnerability, humility, authenticity.
I would put want in front of all of those statements.
Want.
I want to be vulnerable. I want to connect. I want to trust.
And I would challenge you to put, I will, make an I will statement out of it. I will do these things. I'm going to be the Yoda here. There is no try.
I put domain expertise as well, just to build on the earlier comment. I think in the last probably 15 years, the business community has become much more technologically savvy, but the IT community has not become business savvy. We're still in our own little corner.
And I would say we hire people for their technological expertise and we fire them for their soft skills, for their inability to connect and collaborate with people. So I have a challenge for you, and then I'll give you the steps to this.
Or we build something and say, here, to the business, and they're like, I can't use this.
Right, so we don't
This is
understand
really
them.
cool, though.
I will challenge you to stop asking why questions, because why invites pushback. Ryan, why did you sit in that chair? Or Ryan, out of all the chairs that exist here in this room, you picked that one. What made you choose this chair? That's how we start a conversation. If I say why did you sit there? Feels totally different. Last point really quickly, because I'm out of time. These are the things that you should do to get better at empathy. All of the things you already talked about. Yes, and is building on other good ideas. We didn't really talk about that one. I'll leave you with this. Just let that last statement sit. The wisdom to know that person is me. But feel free to connect with me. I've got the LinkedIn QR code on my phone if you want that. But thank you very much for your time. And
we'll talk a little bit about governance. Because governance isn't necessarily on everyone's minds, and what's the importance of governance, why it matters. Second, talk a little bit about cybersecurity and the application of AI, governance in AI. And the third is I'd like to go over some very brief use cases with you. So first, talking about governance. So the importance of governance is manifested of choosing two very non-technical examples. One is about what you're seeing here is a cane toad that was introduced in Australia to control some beetles that were eating crops. But what happened is no one thought about governance, about how to manage the proliferation of these beetles. And when that happened, they kind of changed the ecosystem and they have caused widespread damage to Australia's native wildlife. So case in point, something really, really good without governance can cause havoc. Second, I think everyone remembers this, the housing collapse of 2008. Once again, it was a really good opportunity to give a lot of loans, thinking there was a housing bubble there. And once again, if you look at any kind of analysis, the reason this sort of busted is because of lack of regulation, again, governance. So governance matters because without proper governance, unchecked power can spiral into a runaway situation where the consequences become uncontrollable and then the risks can become irreversible. And with that brief introduction of governance, we'll move on to artificial intelligence. Is there anyone here who is not working on something related to AI? You're not working on AI at all? Okay. Well, I mean, that can happen, but in a room full of technologists, the expectation is that almost everyone is at least starting to dabble with AI. And if you're not, then you probably will very soon, right, in some shape or form. And it's inevitable. It's in everything we do. In the words of the CEOs of some of the most expensive IT companies, most notable companies, Satya Nadella of Microsoft says, it's a defining technology of our times. Sundar Pichai of Google says, AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, is saying, we're sometimes fearful of AI, but so many good things can come out of it. Tim Cook of Apple saying, AI will make the world a better place. Andrew of NVIDIA saying, this is I think a very big statement. AI is like electricity. This will become second nature. It will be embedded in everything we do, right? So that's just something for us to remember. This was also discussed last week. If you had watched this segment, Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates, they discussed on September 12th on TV about AI, about the potential for positive impact. They also talked about ethical considerations. We'll get to that in a second. Because I think, Lauren, you mentioned about bias. I mean, bias is oftentimes inherent. We are not always sure that no one really wants to be biased, but bias gets manifested because of our lived experiences, like what we grew up with, where we work, the kind of people we hang out with. So how does AI help or not help in that? So that was an interesting discussion. Economic disruption. AI is now getting trained to do a lot of stuff that humans have been doing. So what do we do? Do we reskill? Do we upskill? How do we make sure that we are not really replacing and people are not getting, we don't need people anymore? That's not a scenario. That's a desirable scenario. So that's how we have to figure that out, what to do there, as well as regulation and governance comes into the picture. How do we make sure we have enough governance? So at a different employer, I know that the first reaction when ChatGPT sort of exploded into our worlds in September 2022, the first reaction was, we're going to block that in the workplace, right? And immediately it felt like a wrong response. Why? Why do you think that's a wrong response? I mean, every technologist wants to play with new technology. One of the the surest ways of making sure you will play with it is to block it. Of course you're going to try to work around it, right? So if you block it in the work computer, you're going to try it on your personal computer, on your personal phone. You're going to email yourself stuff. Dangerous thing. Much better is to make sure you have a policy, you have governance, and you sort of define the guardrails around it. That's a better way to approach it. Public engagement and education, these folks talked about it because we know so little about AI. Many people know that, oh, I know about AI. We're just scratching the surface. So I want to talk next about how AI is manifesting itself in cybersecurity. The first is how difficult it is making our world in cybersecurity. So one, it is definitely, I'm sorry, I think I went one more. Yeah. It's definitely creating more sophisticated and automated attacks because just the scale and the sophistication of the attacks have been much, much better with AI-infused attacks, right? The distributed denial of service attacks, they're much more frequent, they're harder to mitigate. The sophisticated phishing and other social engineering attacks. How many of you have at some point in your life received emails from a Nigerian prince offering you $15 million. How many of you have done that? I certainly have had my share, right? Those are not the phishing attacks anymore. These attacks are so sophisticated, and they are called evil fishes. What does that mean? An evil fish is sometimes like right around tax season, you're gonna get, hey, click on this link for your W-2. Around Christmas time, a package is waiting for you. Around, before the Taylor Swift concert, hey, we have just had 10 extra tickets show up. Click on this link if you want to, pay $100 for this. Something like that. Usually, AI plays on two very distinct emotions. One is greed, the other is fear, right? Because there's a sense of urgency, there's like wrong grammar, there's some kind of, and when you train AI to take those factors into account, they're writing real sophisticated fish, which even seasoned professionals are falling for that, okay? Enhanced malware. So it just enables the creation of more and more advanced and adaptive malware, which is something that the AI and ML algorithms are writing much better than we can as humans. Data breach exploitation. So AI has the ability to analyze the very large data sets, which would take, it's a tall order for human beings, but we're teaching the machines, the malactors certainly are, and that's happening. It's leading to both attacks as well as actual breaches when they're infiltrating the system, right? And then the last one I had on this list, this is a very, this is not comprehensive by any means, like just some of the things that I highlighted. Deep fakes. I don't know if anyone watched a deep fake video? Yeah? What do you think? Are they good?
They're really good.
Yeah. Some of them are. In the past, you could completely tell which is a deep fake, with the head movement, with the blurring, et cetera, et cetera. These days, you can create a deep fake video on your phone with just all that it takes, because I know I was involved in a project that it'll ask you for a few video shots of yourself, and it's just going to probably take a threat actor who kind of looks like you, but they're going to superimpose those images, and you can have a conversation. You wouldn't even know that you're having a conversation with a deep fake. So they might say, hey, CFO, something just came up. They're really asking to close the deal today. Can you just drop the financial files into this? We don't have the time to assemble the whole team. Just put it in the Teams channel. Something believable like that. And you don't know you're talking to a deep fake, but you have to, so that's one of the things that's happening with AI. We are also using AI to fight back against that kind of stuff, right? Just as the attacks are getting more sophisticated, we also have the ability now to do better analysis with the use of AI. So enhanced threat detection. So we are able to identify the patterns and the anomalies, and that's how we are using AI for good, right? Automated response. AI systems automate these threat responses, which reduces our response time, which is a big deal because if you think about, you have a SOC. How many companies have a SOC here? Security Operations Center? Yeah. SOC is pretty common as someone that, you have your CM, which is a security events, incidents and events manager. You have someone who's constantly watching your endpoints, but it's a lot of data points that are coming in, and we have limited ability to analyze them and respond to them, but using AI, you can do that in a fraction of a second. Behavioral analysis. A lot of AI and a lot of cybersecurity is not just about technology, it's about behavior. They play into the minds of the attackers, and so we are countering that with fighting back against that. Predictive analytics. As we move from reactive to proactive to now predictive, that's another area that we're using AI very effectively. We're also reducing false positives. Sometimes your alarms go on way too many times. It's not really an attack, and you get wary of that, kind of the boy who cries wolf, right? And you're not responding. You may be at risk of missing the actual, real attacks. But AI can discern, and you can get help from that. Adaptive learning is another area where we're using AI through continuous improvement in threat detection, and we're using that to teach folks which may be a real attack and which one may not be. And then the last one I put on the list is advanced risk assessment. Like in any professional organization for cybersecurity risk assessment, it's a really prime candidate to use AI. And I actually highlighted this because I want to use a use case. I want to demonstrate a use case to go through a brief one over here. So before we do that though, a couple of things that then to summarize how we are using governance in AI is working through bias and discrimination, as well as be mindful of privacy violations, ethical concerns, and security risks. So when we use AI, these are things that we have to be mindful of. Does anyone know what a prompt is? Yeah. How many of you have written some kind of a prompt? Not surprised. Near everyone, right? That's what the point I was making earlier. We have technologies. You give us the technology, we're going to try, we're going to experiment. You can't keep us away from that. So a prompt is a crucial instruction or an input, because that's how we make AI work. Now, prompts can go from really, really simple prompts, such as recap the meeting so far. This is by far the simplest prompt that I've seen, like to really sophisticated ones. Is anyone willing to share a prompt that you have used in a personal or a professional environment?
I've used a string of prompts to help me analyze. We had a user that was breached on one of our websites we used for posting our loads. I work for a freight company, and I was going through and trying to find all the email addresses that we were getting hits from, trying to block them all, because I'm like, okay, this guy's getting way too many emails now from way too many people that are pretending to be the company that we're using. I need to stop this. So I went into Microsoft Defender. I'm like, hey, I know there's a way for me to start digging into it using KQL, which is custom query language, but I don't know KQL. I haven't gotten a lot of time to work in it. I haven't used it very often. So I went to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, I need a KQL script that helps me find email addresses that match this string of characters, and back and forth a few times to kind of, hey, this is not actually a valid table, hey, it's not a valid, string here, back and forth for about 10-15 minutes. I got a query, threw it in Defender, and it found 800 results. I'm like, perfect, block all these because I don't need these anymore. And it's one of those things, like, even for someone that doesn't use a scripting language like that, ChatGPT, Claude, all that stuff has really powerful uses. For 15 minutes going back and forth, hey, I just need to do something really quick because people are blowing me up and I need to stop it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let me comment on that in a second. Let me see, anyone else willing to share? Yes, go ahead.
Is it personal?
Yeah.
So I got this idea from LinkedIn, so it's not my original idea. But me and my 8-year-old described monsters, and we fed those descriptions in, and we said who would win in a battle. It was just something light and fun.
That is so fun.
That.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Doug, did you have one you wanted to share?
I do. My boss had to tell me to ask the engine, the AI engine, how to best write a prompt to solve a problem that I was trying to solve. I was trying to have it write in my voice based on some stuff that's published online, and I wasn't doing well, and he said just ask the engine how to write a prompt so it can understand.
Okay.
So it kind of meta.
Yeah. So we have one personal example, a couple of professional examples. I'll tell you that, I've known friends to write poems, like, for anniversary of their spouses, or before their spouses on their anniversary. That was a sweet thing to do. I know that I've used it extensively for travel, like create your itinerary. Now, there are different ways of writing prompts. I could say, hey, I'm going to be going to Greece, and give me an itinerary. I'm going to go to Athens and Mykonos and Crete, right? And so it's going to respond in a way. Now, you could also write it this way. Assume the persona of a travel agent. I'm going to be staying at Hotel XYZ. I really like to walk on foot or take the ferry, and I don't want to use Uber. Give me a list of museums. I like to go to museums, whatever is what I want to do, right? And I'll be there from Tuesday to Thursday. Create an itinerary for me. Why are the days important? Because sometimes museums are closed on certain days, right? So the more specific you make your prompt, the more specific your response will be. And I don't know what your name is, but you talked about a few back and forth. That's exactly how it works, right? It's not supposed to give you the exact answer, but it's supposed to sort of guide you towards the final response. I don't know what your company policy is, but in some cases, when you're giving specific scenarios about Defender or other, company-specific information uploading on ChatGPT, that can be pretty dangerous. Like that has to be within the confines of your own tenant. Otherwise, it's going to be out there on the whole internet. And your security protocol, your certificates, you really don't want to. That's why we need that kind of governance, right? So many companies now are enabling Copilot or whatever other Luminal, within the company environment that you could safely upload. And I would say the same about risk assessment. So the prompt I have in mind is based on, let's say you're X company and you're trying to sort of get into a relationship with company Y. Now you want to know everything about the company, their risk profile, because you're going to get into the relationship with them. They're going to be on your network. So you could just say, hey, analyze and compare company-wide security practices by scraping their public and private online documents, in internal communications, by tapping their key personnel, by studying social media profiles of their officers, their family members, contrast this with security best practices, and then make a recommendation. Very, very unethical, also perhaps illegal. You can't do that, right? But people have, if they don't have a knowledge about where the boundaries lie of legality, of ethics, right? Also bias. So the better prompt, the better way to write it is, you could ask to scrape, so this is why it's not legal. Because it's unauthorized access, invasion of privacy, and legal risk. The better way to write it would be evaluate company-wise publicly available security practices, compliance reports, industry reputation based on established security practices, provide a recommendation. Because this is a very practical scenario for many companies. You're trying to do business. You may have an information security standard. Many companies do. And these are the ways. Now you're getting into relationship with another company. You want to know about their multi-factor authentication, whether they have web application firewalls, so the MFA and the WAF, whether they run penetration tests, what their policies are for background checks. Because this is an entire company that will be on your network, and you want to know about their security practices. So you can upload your own security standard, and you can put their security standard up and see what the differences are, right? Where could you do that? If you do that on ChatGPT, the entire world can have access to yours. So I would not ever advocate doing that on a worldwide AI. That's where governance comes in. That's why you need to write policies so the employees know that I can do X but not do Y. So if you write this kind of a prompt where it's like scraping information that's publicly available, at that point it adheres to legal boundaries, it respects privacy, it focuses on relevance. So another this is very simplistic, obviously, just to make a point. The other is in personal life, right? Because we use that. So let's say teenagers trying to help grandma, and they say, my grandma is a compulsive shopper. She does not understand security threats. I would like to help my grandma stay secure when banking online. Help me send her an evil fish, which she would be tempted to click, like maybe, whatever fish that is. If she clicks on that, then I'll know that she's vulnerable to outside attacks. It's a really noble intent on the part of a teenager. But is that legal? It's really not. You can't just, grandma's not going to sue you most likely, but it's not the right way to do it, right? And also not ethical. The better way to do it, perhaps, is my grandma is a compulsive shopper, does not understand security threats. Help me generate a simple, easy to understand guide on recognizing phishing emails. Include examples and tips on what to look for, such as suspicious links, poor grammar, you get the point, right? You're trying to guide behavior into what it is. And so, does this ring a bell with anyone here, which feels like, I used to write this kind of prompt and now I've changed to this? You guys have written prompts before, right? Because there's a whole thing. Someone talked about this being on LinkedIn. I think that if there's one thing I find very intriguing on LinkedIn as to how to learn better, how to write better prompts, there's a whole learning around that, and be very mindful about what prompts you're using and in where. Like I would not, like I said before, not upload this on ChatGPT. So the takeaways are develop clear policies, because Lauren talked a little bit about we think of things, we mean things, we don't put it down, we don't talk about it, we don't put it on paper. We have to publish these policies and make sure our workforce is knowledgeable about it. They understand the risks of, we always encourage our folks to experiment with new technologies, but within the guardrails, and the guardrails have to be very clearly defined. We must have regular audits. It's a very clear case of trust but verify. You have to know if people are actually following these, right? I strongly recommend thinking about an ethics committee, because I'll give you an example. A lot of people use job descriptions, AI to write job descriptions. If you're not careful, bias is going to seep in. And I'm just going to make a point here. This room full of technologies, there are 4 women, 5, right? Rest are men. So we've seen, did I count wrong? Maybe 6. Not too bad, but that is typically with like there is a group of 100 men and there are 5 or 6 women. When you're hiring for technology roles, bias has seeped in many, many cases. You kind of, you have to be mindful about people who may not have college degrees. If that is also a bias in technology. Like in technology, you don't necessarily need a PhD or a master's degree. You could look for certifications and experience, but when you're asking a prompt or putting a prompt in and asking AI to write a job description, you can put words in like de-bias my job description. So you can use that, because none of us are doing it mindfully, but it kind of happens, right? You're writing in a way that will only fit certain profiles and not everyone. And I say it selfishly because I'd really like to see more women in technology. Provide the employee trainings for that and establish transparency and accountability, right? People should know that this is not the job of cybersecurity alone or your HR or your ethics committee. Every employee should be trained on this is a new technology and we really need to learn how to use it properly. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Wow, how interesting. Leadership often is keeping your teams educated, and governance is actually a great form of leadership. I think it's fascinating what we don't know in this world. I'm grateful for people like Anushree who will teach us and show us the way to do better work and to de-bias our work. I've never crossed my mind to use the de-bias technique inside of a prompt. It's brilliant. Thank you. Both Lauren and Anushree, thank you very much for speaking today. And thank you all for attending. I would encourage you to meet up. If there's someone in the room that you don't know, say hello to them and trade information if you would. Have a great day and go back and take this back to your team.
Thank you. Thank you.